What's up, everybody? Let's do one more of these random reviews of, again, let's do some medical stuff this time. And today's subject is the PIH system in Los Angeles County, a system I've had a lot of recent experience with, unfortunately, over the last 5 to 10 years or so. And while they've kept me alive, I suppose technically, it's come at expense of some questions from time to time. So let's discuss that whole experience and why I might not have the same opinion as I do reviewing, say, UC Irvine Health. So I could start even as far back to the birth of my son. I had not been using the system yet myself, but my son and family was, being that they were from the region in general, and it was just the hospital that most people in this side of our county tend to go to, regardless of which suburb you're from. It's just the big one there. Unfortunately, big does not necessarily mean better. So yeah, to my son's birth, there were a number of complications, and ultimately water had to be broke artificially to try to induce labor. And my son, as a result of which, after 24 to 48 hours, even 36, I can't remember the exact number at this point. It's been too many years since I read that paper. But the point is, there's a timeline or time frame at that point with which you need to do a C-section to prevent infection risks. And in general, the nurse at the time in the hospital was very pushy with any concerns I personally had about the safety of my wife and son. And my wife at the time was already, from what I remember, on the epidural and other medication that was needed. And she was just a little exhausted and out of it. And so she was kind of just going along with whatever they were saying, not really able to think about it, which, again, you can't fault her for that. It's a situation. You're exhausted, I'm sure. I have to have all respect for that. But as a husband, then you're going to step up and advocate, especially as a PhD chemist who's done we'll say a number of different research projects related to med tech, health tech, etc. And so finding resources that are valid, understanding them when it comes to the biochemical things going on in terms of medicine, surgeries, etc., is far from outside of my wheelhouse to understand. In fact, it's pretty easy for someone like myself to pick up those papers, get a good grasp of what's going on, and have a coherent, calm, intellectual conversation and debate with someone like a doctor. Now, in the case of this nurse, they took it very personal, and definitely you could see in their interactions, especially with myself at that point. And sort of like when I asked at that point for the doctor to come, I want to talk to him about this first. And then the doctor agreed with what the argument was and kind of re-instructed the nurse. The nurse, she was a little bit touchy the rest of that time until after birth, when a new nurse was replaced her altogether. And those ones were very sweet at that point, top notch. And so I think it comes down to the individual, in that setting, especially which doctor you have. I think there's a lot of inconsistency from what I've seen, doctor to doctor, nurse to nurse, in terms of both personality, medical knowledge, and willingness to listen to and work with patients. I've had a few personal care providers from the system, one of which they're always hard to get appointments with, but one of them was quite stubborn, didn't listen to my hesitancy to take amoxicillin to treat pneumonia at one point. And needless to say, I had symptoms that resembled psychosis and a stroke, only to be told, just rest, don't take that medicine, we'll replace it with what you asked for originally that doesn't cause any issues. Take the rest of that as your course, and make sure you wait on your yearly blood work until after this has passed. Perhaps to hide something sign-wise in the blood that otherwise would have to be picked up later on MRI, CT that have yet to be done. Who knows? And in that same setting, they noted really dangerous heart rates and rhythms, and didn't do any form of an EEG or send me to an emergency room, which, after speaking with other family and friends who are doctors and medical professionals and knowledgeable about it, were rather troubled as a response. Unsurprisingly, I suppose, when I did need to do my follow-up work the next year, my records, or even this year maybe, one of these 2 years, and especially trying to get everything going out of my abusive relationship again in March, when I really had the ability to focus on my health, they couldn't find my records and wanted me to register again as a new patient, which just so many red flags and alarm bells. I had to stay in the network, unfortunately, due to insurance at this point. So I tried two more times before I found a PCP that was able to get me in timely and was willing to at least listen to my needs, what was going on, and do the right testing to get the autoimmune stuff at least underway for full treatment. We have a working diagnosis of MCTD at this point, mixed connective tissue disease disorder, whichever term technically is. And, we have the right referrals, but getting those referrals for rheumatology is a 2-month waiting period. For urology and nephrology, that's another month. In the meantime, you have to work with they make you work with your external psychiatrist to validate any disability claims you have that are legitimate, even if that's physical and they're seeing you for the symptoms. So I guess the nutshell of that one is, such a provider will definitely at least start to help you, but when it comes to disability claims that are legitimate, things like that, or getting timely answers, is that happening? No. So don't expect overnight, like UC Irvine's experience, all of that stuff to just fall into place when it's supposed to. You kind of have to play the game, go round and round, be patient, and we've yet to see how the specialists are, but I have a feeling, I don't know, we'll wait. We'll see what happens when we get to the specialist. Maybe there's a different review. But when it comes to at least the general practitioners and the experience dealing with the maternity ward, probably 2.5 to 3-star rating, short of a few individuals. It's not a very great experience if you've been to something like UC Irvine Health. I'm sure it's better than a lot of things out there by a long stretch, and why people from all over the region come here. But I think that also speaks to the poor state of a lot of medical care and conceptualization in general in Los Angeles County. There's some weird stuff going on in Orange County mentally too, don't get me wrong, but in general, I thought the medical care was a lot better. I feel like San Diego is even better than both of these places, and I know once you leave and go back to where I'm from, it's a hell of a lot easier to deal with reasonable doctors who know what they're doing and to get timely appointments. So it has to be something with the social mechanisms of how medicine is done here. But yeah, no, 2.5, maybe 3 stars if I'm generous on this one. I'm not the biggest fan of PIH Health in general, but I deal with them to stay alive out of a necessity, and hopefully they do that for me. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Till the next random review for you, or toys, hopefully. We'll see when we get back to those. That's a whole story of its own. We'll catch you later.